Good afternoon. Seemed like a Dixie Chicks kind of afternoon. What'd you think? Some of you are looking blankly at the screen. The Dixie what? All right, whatever. All right, so let's cruise through. We're gonna make today short and sweet because tomorrow at 4:30 I am pretty certain is going to be less short. Simply because we have a lot to cover tomorrow. So I just do want to remind you that tomorrow at 4:30 we will have probably a 40 or so minute meeting about the reopening plans and process and be able to answer any questions that you might have around that. We also hope to bring you during that whole conversation the Market Center's guidance moving forward on what, if anything, you change in terms of physical showings, in terms of physical public open houses, all of those things. So not just Market Center information, but practice information as well, now that the 20th is almost over. So do tune in tomorrow at 4:30. Tell your friends, and let's make sure we really pack the call. There seems to be a private joke going around because half of you are laughing. Someone has to fill me in. It's Jen Henry and Jody Boxer. Yeah, I see you all. That's right. And Borsi wants to know what you're laughing about too.
We will never tell.
All right.
There's a rabbi, a priest, and an imam, and they went into a bar.
Oh, man. All righty. So we do have a couple of things as Steve gets ready for shift winners. I wanted to ask about your ahas from Simon Sinek this morning. So I did ask you to jot those down and bring them back for our conversation today at 4:30. So let's go to Steve for our shift winners. And as soon as we come back, let's get a couple of ahas from Simon Sinek's conversation this morning. Steve.
Okay, so shift winners, these beautiful, glossy, shiny books go to Steve Scatamakia and Dee Brayton. Again, if you already have one, let your team leader know who you want to give it to. What co-broke agent would benefit from getting this book hand delivered? We'll get it to them, guys. Okay, so let us know.
Love it, love it, love it. Thank you so much for that. We appreciate it. What ahas did you have from Simon Sinek this morning? I'm sorry we didn't have more time to clear that this morning, but I am cognizant of your time in the morning, so I wanted to be certain that we got to Marty Miller as on time as possible. Who wants to share an aha from Simon Sinek in his discussion on leadership? Alice.
He said, learn to listen and practice being the last person to speak.
Yeah. Yeah, that is a great strategy, isn't it? It's a great strategy. And as he said, when you're conducting a meeting or you're conducting, team leaders conducting ALC meetings, listing agents, buyer's agents conducting consultations or meetings, follow-up meetings with your clients, try doing that. Try asking a couple of questions and getting all of their feedback first before you go out. It's hard. I know I'm not great at it. Right, high D's on the call. You're so anxious to kind of get the information on the table to get the meeting done so you can move on to the next thing that you have to really kind of pause and remember that it's not a race, right? It's not a race to the finish. But yeah, I love that strategy. And if anyone's ever tried it, it really does promote the feeling of being heard and better listening on your part to create a better meeting environment. So do try that. What else?
He actually took it a step further, and he suggested that when we listen, do not nod your head, agreeing or disagreeing. Just almost stare in the other person and just wait to hear and see his reaction. This way, you are actually more attentive. Yeah,
and you're not influencing any of the because you can influence, right? If Sylvia and I are talking and she's telling me a story and I'm either nodding my head or shaking my head, I'm influencing the rest of her story. She either thinks that I'm interested or disinterested. And so she might speed up, she might slow down. If she thinks I'm disinterested, she might cut off part of the story or the conversation, not share another idea. right? If she thinks I'm too interested, she may go on and on about one idea and not share the better idea that she was going to share until I expressed interest. So body language is important too. Yeah, thanks for reminding us of that, Silva.
And also, you know what, when you actually, you're welcome, when you participate in the conversation either way, you don't pay 100% attention to what the other person is saying. You're just thinking about what you're going to say when the other person finishes his sentence. So it is not as efficient as the technique that he suggested. And one thing that actually resonated with me very much with this morning, it was the way he pronounced accountability. Not accountability, accountability. It gives another meaning to it.
Love it. Love it. Right? Because accountability is just the process of accounting, right? It's paying attention to the process of accounting. Love that. What else? How about two more? Come on, don't be shy. Were you texting? Is that the problem?
Well, it's Christy. Yeah. No, just how he was describing about leaders and followers and how, you know, to follow someone just to indicate that, you know, someone has expressed something that you're interested in and you like where they're going with something. And so you choose to follow their lead because you really like what it is they are doing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like the definition of a follower versus a leader, right? We have one more.
I had one, Rick.
Awesome.
I thought it was kind of an interesting theme that like it kind of stuck out to me because it was an interesting theme. But it's like, do I love my job, right? And that my answer is yes, I do love my job. But it's been an interesting. It's been something that I've been hearing coming up a lot. Like it came up in Pivot yesterday, and came up on a Gary call the other day. It's not just like, do you love your job, but like, are you excited to go to work every day? Like, are you excited to work with the people that are in your life? Are you excited? You know, it's about, you know, not saying, yeah, I have to get up and go to work. It's, I am excited to have the opportunity to get up and go to work. I'm excited about the opportunity to make my phone calls today and help agents or help my buyers and sellers, right? And I thought that was an interesting, I don't know, it's just a question that he asked this morning, and it's just a question that I feel like I've been hearing a lot lately from people. And it's something I think we all really need to kind of think about. What is that going to look like? It's a question I'm asking the staff of the Market Center, and I'm asking the agents that I'm speaking to and talking to. Do you love what you're doing right now? And if you don't, why? Right? And what can you do to change that? Right? Anyway, I thought that was powerful.
Love it, because it's all a choice, right? And so we get to make different choices.
Exactly.
You make the choices, and then your choices make you. So let's make sure that we're making the right choices, and be excited. You know what? Life is short, man.
Yeah.
Life is short. You might as well get up every day and be excited with what you're doing, or go do something else. Because my goodness, to be miserable with what you do every day, that is not a way to spend your very brief time on this planet, right?
Yeah.
All righty.
Are you miserable working with that client? Like, who's that miserable client that you have that you dread every single time you see their name come up on your phone?
Please don't put their names in the chat box, please.
Yes, exactly. Right. But that was a rhetorical question, right? But you have a choice whether or not you work with that client. That is a choice that you make every time you answer that phone or every time you respond to that text message.
So true. So true. And, you know, so much of what Dan's talking about is where we started this morning. So I'll just end there. Simon Sinek was talking about leadership, a bunch of different levels. And I asked you to consider what that meant in terms of you leading yourself, right? And that's really where Dan brought us back to was, what are the questions you're asking yourself to lead yourself forward? Because you can't lead others until you can properly lead yourself, right? Awesome. All right. Thank you for sharing those ahas. I love that Simon Sinek, and I hope that was a a worthwhile use of a few minutes of your time this morning. One of the things that I wanted to just bring up real quick before we finish today was I've had a bunch of people ask me, I mentioned a balance sheet last week, a personal balance sheet, and they asked me, what does a personal balance sheet look like? So I just went on Google and Googled personal balance sheet images. There's about 50 or 60,000 of them that you can choose from, depending on how complicated you want to make it. I encourage you to keep it as uncomplicated as possible. So I found this one that is just a simple Excel spreadsheet for you. And I want to just show you what the pieces are. So again, personal balance sheet is a measure of your assets on the left versus your liabilities here on the right. Right? And the difference between the two is your net worth. So your assets would include any cash that you have, any cash in retirement savings, any cash in pensions, any CDs, if you have cash value in your life insurance, right? Added to the property assets that you might have down here. What's the value of your house? Do you have any rental properties? What's the value of those? What's the value of your vehicles? Do you have any personal items of value? If you own companies, you might have a valuation of a company in here that you might add in there. So that's all of your assets, right? If you have like crown jewels, and you know what the value of that is, what's the value of that? Those are all your assets. Then on the right-hand side, you have all of your liabilities. That's money you owe. So what is that credit card balance? That goes here. Is there a student loan that you're paying off? That balance goes here. Any mortgage on your primary residence goes here. Any mortgages on rental properties, any car loans that you have, any personal loans, anything else that you owe anybody, right? So you can see here that the total assets for Mr. and Mrs. B here were 1.4 with loans or liabilities of just over 500,000 against that. So the assets minus the liabilities give them a net worth of just under $900,000. So you see how that works. Any questions on personal balance sheets just since we're here?
Yeah, so they're blank templates for them, or I mean, do they show the blank template and the filled in ones?
So blank templates, if you Google personal balance sheets, I'm sure you can find blank templates. I just did images to be able to show you something here. And if you find a template that is confusing in any way, just send it to me. I'm happy to shoot back an answer about what that looks like. I will tell you, I used one for years that I didn't understand half the stuff on there. And so my thought was, well, if I didn't know what question it was asking me, I probably didn't have it, so I skipped it. I figured if I had it, I would probably know what that was. So I used that for years. Just recently, about 6 months ago or so, I took that and I just made my own Excel spreadsheet, right? And so I took all the liability all the asset things that I knew I had and just made columns for that and liabilities. And then I put some formulas together so I can just update that spreadsheet every once in a while. Every time I pay my mortgage payment, what happens when you pay a mortgage payment? What goes up?
Equity.
Your equity. So your net worth actually goes up, right? Every time you make a mortgage payment, because your liabilities go down. So now every month when I get my new statement, all my statements, I go in and I just put the new mortgage amounts in for my properties, and that gives me a new net worth number, right? And then quarterly I go through and do a cash analysis and update it that way. But now it's much simpler.
Hey, Rick.
Yes.
And if you open Excel and you open a new spreadsheet, you can search for templates on there, and there is a personal balance sheet in there. So you don't even have to go to Google. You can just do it right on Excel.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. I love that. And there is a conversation about it. I think Diane asked the question about a blank versus a filled in one. There is a conversation with blanks and filled in ones, not necessarily Excel, but they do exist in the first third of the MREI. So check out the Blue Book, and there is some information about personal balance sheets in there. Chris.
Rick, I actually have a financial calculator from Rich Dad Poor Dad. That's like you can actually input the stuff and it'll auto populate and figure out the numbers on an ongoing basis. I think I can copy it and send it to you.
Oh yeah, that'd be awesome. Yeah, if you can do that, I'll get it to everybody else who wants it. That'd be awesome. Thank you, my friend. That's awesome. Karen, did you have something for us? No? Okay, sorry, she was unmuted, so I thought maybe she was giving us some a question. So again, I just got a bunch of questions on personal balance sheets, so I wanted to throw that information out there because it is my recommendation that if you have never done a personal balance sheet, that this weekend, your Memorial Day weekend project should be personal balance sheet. So you know where you stand, know what your net worth is, so you know how to manipulate the assets and the liabilities and know what actions you have to take to grow the assets and reduce the liabilities so your net worth grows. Alrighty, any other questions on anything else, process-oriented or anything else? Again, we are going to have the whole reopening conversation tomorrow at 4:30, so if you could save your questions on that topic for tomorrow, that would be awesome. But anything else that we need to cover or answer for you before we finish today?
Hey, Rick, I just had one thing to add. Exactly what you're talking about is the exact mortgage application that we ask all of the buyers to fill out. Their assets, their liabilities, it's all listed exactly in the same way. So
Got it. And so for those of you who couldn't hear Karen, because you kind of sounded like you were on the moon. For those of you who couldn't hear Karen, what she said was that's exactly what we ask all your buyers to fill out in terms of what are your assets, what are your liabilities, so that you can get they can get a clear picture of their financials. So again, they're not big, hard, scary questions. Every once in a while, someone will say to me, "I'm not doing mine because I already know the answer," and I encourage them to move forward and do it anyway. And every single person who has done it anyway, after saying I'm not doing it because I know what the answer is, came back to me and said, "You know what? I'm glad I did that because the answer was actually different than I thought." So be careful what you think you know for certain, right? Net worth is not positive, negative, or zero. Sorry, it is one of those three things. It is certainly one of those three things. Net worth isn't just I have it or I don't. Sorry, I completely misstated that. It's not I have it or I don't. It's a number, right? That number can be positive, that number can be negative, or that number can be zero. You need to know where you stand, because if it's positive, you want to move that in a positive direction. If it's zero, you want to get the number bigger than zero. And if it's negative, you want to move back to zero so that you can start going in a positive direction. But just like looking at a map, if you know where you want to go and you don't know where you're starting, what good is that map? It's of absolutely no use to you, right? So you have to know where you're starting in order to get where you're going. Steve Scott, go ahead.
Yeah, I just have a suggestion to everybody on the call. So we know we're having our offices wide meeting tomorrow at 4:30 to talk about our reopening, which I'm sure is exciting for everybody and very important. And that email has been sent and more emails will be sent. But if everybody on this call, if all 50 people on this call reach out to your favorite buds, your best buds in the office, and just suggest that they get on the call tomorrow, we can be up to 200 or more people really listening and paying attention to something that's kind of important. So please do that.
Yeah, it is to everyone's advantage, because if you show up on Tuesday and you don't know what we talked about on Thursday, you could be in for a surprise. So make sure that you plug in, and make sure you plug everybody else in as well. All right, guys, if there's nothing else, like I said, I wanted to keep it nice and short today because we're going to go long tomorrow. So if there's nothing else, we will, oh, and Chris did provide in the chat box a download. If you can't see it in the chat box or can't download it from the chat box, I will do that. And
I'll send it to you, Rick.
thank you so much, and make sure we get it out to anyone who is interested. I'll send it to the Market Center later tonight or tomorrow morning, so you don't have to send a text to me to tell me you're interested. Guys, as always, it's a lovely afternoon when you're a part of it. It's great to see you. Hey, Miles, give me a high five.
Miles.
There we go. I love it. All right, guys, have an awesome evening. We'll see you tomorrow at 9 o'clock, bright and early. Take care.